Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to just be having a casual talk of like tropes that make me go oof. And this is nothing against anybody who uses these tropes, who loves these tropes. We just all have our things that like we're reading and we go, Huh. And it actually started because I was a couple weeks back looking at different book reviews because, one of the ways that I find new books, I obviously look at the Fresh Meat feature, I look at recommendations that people send me, but I also just log into Goodreads and then I kind of scroll down my front page on Goodreads and see what other people are reading. And if I like the cover, or if somebody makes a comment on something that seems interesting, I will investigate. And so I find books in different ways. Whether I read them or not is another thing, but I still do often end up reading reviews, especially one-star reviews, to like get the DL on what's going on in this book. Because then, I get that link and then I go in and I look at readers also enjoyed, and then I just start rabbit trailing. This is how it goes. And sometimes you find some interesting things, and sometimes you go, a lot. But so at that point, a couple weeks ago, I was down a trail of finding a couple of things that like kept happening in the reviews. And so then I was like, you know what? Let's start making a list of different things that make me go, or oof. And I want to invite you also to share any tropes that you recognize that make you go oof. Now, again, no harm in anybody doing whatever tropes or enjoying whatever tropes that they want. It's just preference and can affect an individual's enjoyment of a story or still just make you think. Like some tropes really do make you think. Anyway, before we get started in this list of ethereal oof tropes, because they have ascended, prepare yourselves. A couple of things. Number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Leigh, the monthly prompt writing contest where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, it is coming next Monday, next Monday. Depends on how you look at it. It's like 2 days, 3 days from now. When you bask in your creativity for how you have answered the prompt. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit it to the Fresh Meat feature, that first chapter and cover will be shared here on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your work. I have become a reader of Lauren Chambers' work because he submitted his work to the Fresh Meat feature, and I like the ideas very much. And I talked more about this on Thursday when I was talking about the Dark Creator, because my experience with the Dark Creator was very different than my experience with the Dark Scientist, and I will be reading the Dark Butler. However, what I do think is a good thing to remember is that somebody can enjoy your work and enjoy your ideas, but not necessarily like that one book. And so, or multiple books. I mean, Stephen King has how many books? And there is no way that even the most loving, adoring Stephen King fan loves every single thing that he has ever written. And I use him because he is so prolific. He is so prolific, to the likes of which many of us will never get to. However, it's fine. Don't take something like that so personal. The third thing is that I would like to add here, because I'm kind of changing rules that I stated before. Last year, I did a video talking about how I was going to change how people can recommend me their books or books that they are interested in having me read. And it was going to be close-knit to only the Discord users. That's also, I'm changing that. It's going to be in a link in the description as well, in the link tree. And so if you want me to read your book, you can submit it there. And then during summer, when I'm doing recommended reads, I will select from that list, whether it's at random or not. I have no idea yet. But after what has happened yet again with an author whom I have known for 4 or 5 years, and them getting mad at me, it doesn't really seem that having a relationship with an author matters. And so I'm going to protect myself and not request that people come to know me, or that we actually become conversational beforehand, because it's just going to hurt me worse when I'm just tossed away as a tool again. So you know what? Let's just make this completely, let's just make it as straightforward as possible to be the business relationship that many wish that it is. But if you do submit your work to be read on this channel, prepare yourselves, familiarize yourselves with the way that I talk about works. I'm going to share just what I think, how I felt, felt, what my responses were. In no way is it objective most of the time, unless I talk about grammar or functionality. But generally, it's all going to be subjective. It's going to be my read on things, and it's going to be just a way to talk about the books, the subjects, the way that it is written. A book that I don't enjoy doesn't mean other people won't enjoy it, and that's why I share it. The discussions mean everything, and I just enjoy talking about story, talking about craft. It's not that serious. So please don't hate me. That is an uncomfortable fear I actually have every week that I publish book reviews, because I'm like, should I just stop doing indie book reviews? Because I'm not trying to upset people, and I've upset more than a few people, and I'm getting really beat down by this. I like talking about the books, but I'm sick of author responses from even people that I trusted. So anyway, that's a side tangent. Better to get that out now so I don't end up saying it later. With that said, let's jump into the trope, something a little bit more happy, a little bit more fun. And again, if your books contain these things, it's all good. If you enjoy these tropes, if you bathe in the happiness that is these tropes, have at you. I'm glad that you have them. We don't all need them. I have 2 or 3 other videos that have to do with like illegal tropes on this channel. If you want to know some of the other illegal tropes around here, get you thrown in jail in the hole. But these are just oofs. A little bit of oof. Anyway, the first is carving names into the skin being romantic. I ran into like 3 or 4 books in a row where the character was carving their name into the female main character, or the female main character was being coerced into carving the name of the male character into her skin as a romantic gesture. And it actually made me think, because this was I was watching some different like true crime videos at the time as well, and it made me think of like the Onision situation where he was having young girls write their names on his skin, and just how often it is for like rock stars and movie stars or any sort of entertainer that has this relationship with fans to actually ask this of fans. And it made me wonder if this carryover into romance had to do with just how many in fandoms tend to write those. And obviously, it's not a new thing because people put mom as a tattoo on their body all the time, or get the name of a loved one tattooed on their body all the time. Carving kind of just adds that level of self-harm and sacrifice in a way, and martyrdom, because it's another level beyond tattoos, and it is a scar, so it is changing your skin in a way that is different than tattooing. But it is interesting. Let me know what your thoughts are on the carving skin with the lover's name in it. Another trope that makes me go oof is children informing adults of everything, even the professions in which the adults are apparently masters in and supposedly have been masters in forever. So like, I get stories where a younger character, a child, a teenager may inform an adult of something, a viewpoint that they've never had before. But this was a situation of like a healer from a healer's family telling her father about a healing ability that apparently they've always had. And he's just like, I never thought about that before. And it was just like a game-changing healing thing. And so if you want to tell me that like this is a master and they know everything and they're kind of the top of the game, and then you have a child who doesn't even know their powers yet coming up with brand new ways to do things that is revolutionizing everything, it's kind of annoying when the younger, inexperienced one constantly knows better than everyone. And you can make it work. Absolutely. I have nothing against the outsider coming in and then seeing things from a different direction. Heck, I got into IT as a creative person because they were like, bro, we need a creative perspective to problem solve our technical issues. So we want you. So you can have that new perspective, fresh perspective coming in and bringing a fresh idea. It's just the fact of this younger person acting as the savior of the older people that are all like, oh my gosh, I am so dumb. I never thought of this super simple thing before, like healing a broken bone. And you're like, okay, this affects the credibility of the entire story, because when you make the elders in your story so dumb because it has to show your main character as being smarter than them, there are a lot of questions to how society works. Like, this becomes a power leveling thing of like, how is society able to function when the leadership is barely able to think past their nose? And that's an issue in a lot of different things. Like, I feel like Fourth Wing has this issue too, where you're like, the leadership is so incompetent because people need to be incompetent so the main character can look more competent. But then you're like, how are they ever winning the wars? They are so incompetent. It's a problem. But it's okay to have older people who know more and have to train the younger people. The younger people are the main characters, don't have to know everything, don't have to nonstop fail. And like totally there are plots to be had where the main character never fails or rarely fails or knows everything and is like the godsend. I mean, Empress Teresa is brilliant in that way, unironically brilliant, because she has to learn how to use her abilities. And every time she tries to use her abilities to solve a problem, she doesn't think about the issues that the next thing will cause. Pretty sure she caused the end of the world by accident by changing the positioning of the planets in space and also hollowing them out to get the ore and the gold and all of the stuff from inside of them. So now they float in space differently. And the end of the world is going to be accidentally brought. It just hasn't come yet. But everything that she does in that book comes with a consequence that was unseen. And so it's brilliant. That's one of my favorite things about that book. And so many books do not have like the consequence. Anyway, that's getting beside the point. She's a 17-year-old who recognizes she doesn't know everything, but she's trying really hard and thinks that she knows better than everyone. And every time she tries, she messes up. Love it. I love it for that reason. You don't see it enough. Anyway, this is getting aside. You can have your younger character who brings in a new or outsider, who brings in a new perspective, who knows things that the elders don't know, perfectly fine, but them always knowing better and them knowing things that would be better historically. And that seems so obvious that the elders should know it feels ridiculous and kind of undermines everybody in the story. Another trope that makes me go oof is are characters that are so morally good they try to help everyone, including the bad people, and somehow that's not considered bad. And the book never reflects on these choices in any sort of way, like love interests, allies. Nobody really pushes them on it. And if they do, then the ally who says, hey, wait a second, you're going to heal that really bad person, like Genghis Khan Light over here, because you feel bad for him because he's in pain and you don't want people to feel pain, but he's going to come and murder all of us if you do that. And you go, well, I don't want him to suffer. And plus, you're just as bad if you want him to die. Okay, compassion and caring and kindness are great things, but there is a point in which it is stupid, it is self-destructive, and the stories that constantly have the main character heal everybody and they are just the goodest of the goodest because they're the only ones that don't want anybody to get hurt, but then the bad guy goes off to kill other people, or that's not even recognized as a thing because it is just to make this main character look the nicest of the nice and the only one who will give the bad guys a chance. Not great. Not great. And I think it's an underused thing. I mean, I'm not saying it's not out there. There are millions upon millions of books, so it's done out there. But I think it's an underutilized thing where character is so kind that it actually is detrimental to literally everybody else. And they are only thinking about, one, how good they look, or two, being kind to everybody to the point that it destroys society. At least challenge it sometime. The next trope that makes me go oof is parents or adults acting like grade school bullies on Hollywood television. I cannot even tell you how common this has apparently been in reading one-star reviews or reading reviews or watching video reviews talking about, the mom and the dad, or usually the mom because the dad is not in the picture, but the uncle and the cousins or the nephews or all of the adults. We can look at freaking Ribbon in the Sand, where you had the coach that was also acting exactly like the bullies, that had the teachers acting exactly like the child bullies. And there is just no maturity whatsoever. And it is this over-exaggeration of bully culture. And I get there's like this kink towards it right now because there are so many bully romance books. And there is also, it's such an easy way to demonize everybody that your main character doesn't like, is to just immediately make everybody else victimize them to the nth degree with zero nuance. It happens. It has its purpose. I generally don't like it, and it usually feels like an attempted shortcut to manipulate me, to make me side with the main character, side with the victim by default of them being a victim. But for me, that doesn't work. Immediate victimhood or victimhood in a story does not make me compassionate with the character. And maybe that's just my own mental issues that'll cause this. You let me know how you feel on that. But just because you make a character a victim or the ultimate victim doesn't make me care about them, because everybody in their life hates them doesn't make me suddenly care about them. I need to see other reasons to care about them other than they are a victim who is also often a self-righteous victim, because obviously if you're a victim, then you can't be wrong. It's just everybody else is wrong and they are responding to you because you're pointing out their evil or something. There are other ways to do this. There are ways to also make that work, but generally speaking, I'm not seeing it in a lot of stuff. The next trope that makes me go oof is, oh my gosh, he is so hot, but I hate him. This obsession with just like carrying on sexual tension for a lack of better ways to keep the characters apart or to keep tension in a story is just by constantly making the main character or the female character recognize that the male character is both hot, but also she hates him. And the fact that she hates him is the only reason that they're not banging yet, because once they bang, say goodbye to the story. That is often why the sexual encounter completing doesn't come until the end of the book, also because that is the thing that is carrying the tension, since there is no actual plot, there is no actual tension outside of them not getting together and then constantly being interrupted one way or another before they get together, including actual interruptions, bad situations of like, oh, somebody just walked in and is now chasing them and now they have to get somewhere else, somebody feeling insecure and then cheating on somebody else, somebody 100% being insecure and running away and just like forcibly keeping the characters apart until, the 80-90% mark when, oh, we don't have to sustain a story anymore. And then, amnesia happens and you have to do it all over again in the second book. But I hate him, yet he is so hot is very annoying. And it just constantly pauses the story to tell you these things, to one, remind you how hot the character is, but also the reason why they are not together yet. The next trope that makes me go oof is when every female character is nothing but a pretty face or a function, which comes up fairly often. They don't do anything. They're not expected to do anything. Actually, they're expected to stay at home and make chicken nuggies, which, if that is your vibe, if that is your story, have at it, enjoy yourself. I'm not going to enjoy that. I don't like characters that are kind of just pushed aside to be objects, and it doesn't matter if it is a male character who is pushed aside to just be an object or a female character who is just pushed aside to be an object. Now, you can write a story that uses this idea as part of the theme of objectification, but the characters just being pushed aside and being objects to be won and having nothing to offer to the story but an existence of a prize, I'm not a fan of. Another trope that makes me go oof is when mental illness or mental health are used as sales markers. So somebody's selling their story as, hey, look, it's about mental illness. Look, this character has autism and has ADHD and has schizophrenia. You should read it because it is positive mental health representation. It is about depression. It is about, I don't care. I think that it is cheap to use those as a sale marketer, to use those as a pitching thing, to also especially the people that use something like that to pretend that their book is better than other people's books, to pretend that they are doing it for a better cause because they include these things in there. You can find all kinds of mental diagnoses or issues inside of Bodymore. You're going to find stuff in Westies, all to different extents. Never going to sell them based on those things because those characters are more than whatever the diagnosis is. And I'm not a better person for writing whatever. They just exist the way that they exist. And I personally, some people might be drawn to it because they're like, hey, but that's something that speaks to me as a reader. I want to find those books. That's great if those are the sales pitches that speak to you, but I have personally not enjoyed the way that these things are pitched and used as in these books and in the blurbs to try to make it sound like this book is better than those books because it covers mental illness as an issue, which is also such a broad spectrum of things that mental illness is really not a good moniker for anything, because like, what are we talking about here? So it reads like virtue signaling in a way. Another trope that makes me go oof is self-inserts when the author can't separate themselves from their book. So I don't particularly mind or have anything against self-inserts as a concept. I think that you have different ways of exploring characters in the world with and yourself through self-inserts. Bret Easton Ellis's newest book, The Shards, is a self-insert where he has said, one, the character's name is Bret Easton Ellis. Number two, the story is a combination of his memories and experiences that he went through, a murder that happened at the time, or a couple of murders that happened at the time, and something else that happened at the time. And he kind of mushed them together to create this story. And so that is a level of self-insert. You also have characters that are not direct self-inserts like that, but maybe a version of exploring a situation or emotions or experiences that you went through. On the Small Backs of Children by Lydia Yakunovic also has levels of self-insert. And from what I've read, that book with her self-inserted character also has similar circumstances that are put in another book of hers that is more forward in autobiographical fiction, because she uses similar situations from experiences that she's had to explore the situations she's been in. So you can use self-inserts to explore experiences, emotions, what if situations with yourself, how you wished things could have been. Or there's the whole, if you have your character who has some elements of you and they're kind of an epithet of you or a stand-in for you, but they are different than you. Or there's the whole wish fulfillment thing where you can just, it is just the ideal everything. You are just like living your life. You're having the best life that you can. You are giving this character everything that you wish that you could have and just trucking it. There are so many ways to do self-inserts, and I don't particularly, like, I'm not necessarily going to enjoy a self-insert because at the very foundation of a self-insert, specifically the wish fulfillment self-insert, is for self-expression and self-realization. And so that's going to generally have more benefit, not only to the author, but to the people that also want to insert themselves into a story and then vicariously live through that story. So they're going to be rewarded by living that character, by inserting as that character. Different kind of reader than the ones that kind of voyeuristically watch the story happen, because the ones that insert don't want bad things to happen to them. Anyway, that's a side tangent. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I may not enjoy self-inserts specifically wish fulfillment, but they have their places and they have their audience. However, where I start running into the issue of what I don't like in these tropes that make me go oof is when the author is so close to their work, because the character inserted in the story is so close to them and they haven't been able to separate themselves out of the character yet. So when the book receives feedback or when the book receives criticism, they take it as a personal criticism because you're criticizing that character. And I've seen it on multiple occasions. I've even seen some authors bragging about this, like where they go, well, these other people left comments about my main character saying that they're this and this and this and this, but really it's me. And it's like, that I don't feel like that's something that you should really be sharing on open social media. Share it with your friends if it is that hurtful. But generally speaking, readers are not trying to hurt you by responding to the elements of a book. Most readers don't know you. And we're also not necessarily supposed to be assuming who the author is. Now, we might be like, these are some interesting elements, Grady Hendrix. Why are you constantly making women in your books smell like piss or drink piss or have something to do with piss? Multiple occasions now. Why do you specifically like to make your books entirely casts of women where you then criticize what is specifically female experience that you would have no experiences for? Actually, that's a very interesting thing to me. Total side tangent right here. But we're not supposed to assume that a character in a book is a stand-in for the author. And yet, somehow, if we criticize a character who actually is a stand-in for the author, it is a personal attack on the author. So do yourself a favor, protect yourself by separating yourself from the characters in the book. I do think it is an interesting conversation to be had when you have an author around, though, when you can talk about, like, what parts of this were you? Where did this inspiration come from? I'd be interested in seeing, why Lauren Chambers, the author of The Dark Descendants, picked the pen name Lauren Chambers with a character in a book named Lauren Chambers. And then also, this character is not a self-insert. Like, what about that character? Where did that character name come from? Does that character name have a story that goes well beyond the entry in this book? Because I've had characters that transcend, different stories. They came from different places and then this is where they landed. So I would be interested in, like, where does this come from? What parts of this, how do you view this? Like, that would be an interesting thing with so many different books. It's just like when you criticize a book, people don't want to talk to you anymore. Anyway, moving on. The next trope that makes me go oof is narration that lies in its own thoughts to trick the reader to hide a plot point later. I cannot even describe to you how annoying this is. When the narration is close third or first person, and the narration straight up lies to you about things that the character would know, so that you can get to the end of the book and it can be like, plot twist, actually, I am the princess. You knew this the entire time. You didn't discover anything. You were literally just lying in your own head to lie to the reader because you're aware of the reader sitting over you watching your story. You didn't even lie to you. You lied to me. Do not do this. This pisses me off so much. It is the author proving that nothing in the story matters and they will lie to you. They are not telling a story. They are not following a character in truthful circumstances. They are trying to trick you. I hate it. The next trope that makes me go oof is a story that brags or tries to be, ugh, my story is so deep. It's so deep, you'll never understand it. If you don't like it, you just are not smart enough. Okay, fine. Like I say, I'm an idiot. I'm a Dumbo. I don't get your story because I'm a poo-poo brain. That doesn't really sell your story very well, though. I'm just gonna say, if you believe that your story is so high IQ that a regular person, so deep that a regular person can't read it and understand it, get ready for a bunch of critical reviews then, because I don't know how many people are going to be smart enough to understand your very deep story. It being super deep doesn't make it better than other people's stuff. The next trope that makes me go oof is a barely disguised real-life fanfiction or anti-fanfiction, which is still just fanfiction. And so what I mean by real-life fanfiction is somebody is writing a story about a real person in real life, but it is fanfiction of them hooking up with that person. Or anti-fanfiction would be somebody hates something so much that they're doing a parody version of it that it is still fanfiction. It is just I hate you fanfiction, but it's bringing attention to that thing because they're such a fan of hating the thing. I don't know, it's just cringe to me. If you want to spend your time how you want to spend your time, but that make me go oof. Another trope that make me go oof is falling in love with your rapist. I run into it a lot, actually. And it's bizarre to me. I think the first time that I really got smacked in the face with it was his name was Augustin. And then it turned into the Flames of Leith, which was recommended by the His Name is Augustin author. And it still gets me. I don't understand. Can you? Sure. There are obviously the different circumstances in which you can start falling in love with your captor or start over empathizing with your captor. It happens. I would not say these books do it. And for a romance book specifically or an erotica book specifically to fall for your rapist is very strange to me. The next trope that makes me go oof is love interests who disrespect or hate each other the whole time, but I'm the only one who can make you feel like this. There are so many, and not just in erotica, not just in porn, but the characters are just like at each other's throats. However, they excuse their mistreatment of somebody else because they can't get somebody to make them come as hard as this person does. And so then all of the abuse is forgiven and all of the treatment is forgiven and they don't have to be better because nobody else can make you feel like I do. So all is forgiven. There are, again, ways to make it work. This ain't it. This absolutely ain't it. And it only coming up every time when they're sexual together. And it's like, this is the thing, the glue that keeps them together despite 98% of the time it's sucky and they don't respect you. I don't get it. The next trope that makes me go oof is if the main character is female and all of the other characters that are female are either evil or mean, while the male characters are all pretty much like peak. If the main character is male and all female characters throw themselves at the main character compulsively, that's also makes me go oof. I don't know if I have any further discussion on that. It is just all the women suck except for the main one, or the male character is the keynote male character that all of the women in existence throw themselves at as well. Can you make it work? Yes. Am I a fan of it? No. Am I glad you have it? Sure. Don't expect me to like it though. Another trope that makes me go oof is a note at the beginning of the book from the author telling me how to read the book. I don't particularly mind author's notes at the end of the book that wants to add stuff to the book after the reading has happened. However, stuff at the beginning of the book, whether it was Sam Fenna's book or Alex Ratcliffe's book, or there was Why Not Wichita, where if you open the book in the Amazon store to look at the peek inside, that author started the book out with like a 10 to 15 page story of what inspired him to write Why Not Wichita before the story even starts. And it takes up the entire look inside feature. So you don't even get a chance to see what the story might look like, what the writing looks like, because he's too busy talking about his inspiration. I think those parts of the story, those parts of the things, that information can be interesting, but I think that it does better if it is at the back of the book to give context after the reader has already gone through it. And when you're talking to the reader about your story one way or another, I think it is better to not assume that they are such an idiot that you have to talk down to them. But I think that you majorly do yourself a disservice if all of your peek inside pages hide your actual prose. While on this subject, another trope that makes me go oof is authors' notes inside of books telling readers what they are allowed to say in reviews. This came up more than a couple of times since I started writing this list with multiple books, often in stuff that has like taboo erotica stories, probably because their whole gist of things is probably because their whole market is surprising you and then tricking you into reading their kinky stuff. But I don't like it when authors put in a book, do not, write this in your reviews. Do not share these things in your reviews. Hide these things in your reviews so that other readers can't properly make decisions for themselves if they decide to read the reviews. I don't think it is an author's place to be dictating what readers say about their experience. Getting away from that trope, we got two more. And these are probably going to be the most offensive, so prepare yourself, get your comfy pillow on, seat yourself preparedly, and do not take these personally, please. The first of the last two tropes that make me go oof is world building that is basically just D&D fanfic or barely adjusted fanfic. Like, if you want to play D&D, go play D&D. If you want to write a book, then write a book. But if you just take the stuff from D&D and then place it into a book, it doesn't feel like you actually understand literature. I don't even read fantasy as my favorite genre or a genre I seek out, and I still get so many books that are just D&D. And the other issue is that it often struggles from the same problems that fan fiction has. And this isn't saying that all fan fiction is bad. Fan fiction is written with it in mind that you are familiar with the property in which the fan fiction is coming out of. So then you don't have to do a bunch of world building. You can assume that readers already know about things. You don't have to do the setting. You can assume that readers already know. And that also happens in D&D fanfic or stories written from the D&D perspective. I have read more than a couple stories that feel like the background has come out of D&D, or it's been very obvious that they've come out of D&D, and they don't explain any of the magic to you. They don't explain any of the lore to you because there's this assumption that you're already familiar. And I don't think they do it on purpose. I just don't think they understand that there are readers who are not familiar with these things, and they need to put it in the story to make it encompass itself. Again, it's the same thing, and it's very similar, and it's still similar to stuff like Hapless Homesteader and The Hate You Give that used news articles and real life things to fill in the blanks so that it could suggest to you something, but you need to put in the world building for those things. If you're unfamiliar, then you're not going to have a full story. But so often with the fanfic, with a D&D written fanfic or the D&D written stories, information is left out because the author is so familiar with D&D that they don't put it in the story, and they also don't build their own lore outside of that. They're just going by D&D rules, which is also, again, they're not going to change any of them. The final one, which may be the most offensive to be taken because it's however you want to take it, people are allowed to make their own decisions, allowed to love whatever they want to love, but this is a trope that doesn't work for me. And it is cheating as a major plot item where it's like, oh, they're going to cheat, but they're going to get back together. Oh, he's not that bad because he's a cheater. Oh, it's so casual because he's a cheater, but also polygamy or why choose? Those tropes don't work for me because I am very much a monogamist. And that is a choice for me. That is what I prefer to see reflected in a relationship. And so the tropes of the why choose, of somebody sharing their heart, sharing their body with multiple people, does not really work for me. And that's not saying it can't work for other people and that other people can't find a value in it. But personally, it is not something that I can really stand. And I can't stand the casualness in which cheating is used or sharing, and often, especially with cheating in stories, it undermines just how damaging and traumatic that situation is. Now, that's not to say I can't and don't read any stories with these things involved. It will be a different level of enjoyment depending on if those things are involved. If I'm supposed to like your characters, it is unlikely that I will like your characters because of that. Because of some of these elements in the story. But that doesn't mean that the story can't be interesting or entertaining. I just may not like those characters. With an example of that, Inugami Curse featured majorly mistress situation going on with the main family. And I didn't particularly like any of the characters. Well, Monkey was good. But I didn't particularly like any of the characters, and I didn't need to like any of the characters in that book. That book was short. It was just trying to be a crime, like an interesting crime mystery novel. It was what it was. So it also depends on what the genre is and what your hopes or expectations are for a book. And a lot of people, can get over that situation and not put that much value in it. I am not one of those readers. but I can still read those books. It just depends on if you're expecting me to like a character, which goes into like, what is the purpose of your book? So if it's like a feel-good book, that's not going to work for me. If it is the entire thing is somebody is cheating on her partner with somebody else who is actually her soulmate while not telling her current boyfriend that she is seeing somebody else on the phone and in person, that's not a rom-com to me. It's a rom-com to a lot of people though. Anyway, I have gone on and on with this. So those are some of the more recent tropes that I have seen around that make me go oof, or that I have experienced. Let me know what some of yours are down in the comments below. Do we have any in common? This is really just personal taste. And again, this is really just personal taste, personal preference. We're all going to enjoy different things and we're going to provide different values on different things. And it is what it is. And that's why it is so great that there is so much to read. With that said, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Have a great weekend and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry. Flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?